Hello and welcome. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to check out another one of my videos. The time has come for another ranking the last 10 palettes that I tried video. And honestly, today I could probably rank like 15 or 16 palettes because that's how many I have completed and I'm like ready to do in a ranking video and give you guys my official review and ranking for them. But these videos for me tend to be very long and I'm trying to make it a little bit shorter just to make it more manageable for me in the editing and putting together process of it, because a 40-minute video with a ton of inserts, because I include swatches, I include all the looks that I do with the palettes, and I also include any Instagram tutorials in there. So that's a lot of like inserts. So if it's a 40-45 minute video, it takes me days to edit. So I'm trying to be a little bit more strict with myself and really keep it to 10 palettes, and that way it's just around the 20-30 minute mark and it's a little bit more manageable for me. So you know what, I was like, it's okay, Katie, you don't have to do everything right now. So I picked the 10 that I finished and I feel like I have really good solid reviews on, and in a couple weeks I'm just going to come back with another 10. So it's just going to be a little bit shorter than my last one, but that's okay. I really enjoy these videos. You guys seem to really enjoy these videos, so it's okay if I come back in 2 weeks with another one. Hopefully, because that's what I'm going to be doing. But yeah, I have 10 palettes to share with you guys today and give you guys my official review. And just to make it fun, I always rank it from my least favorite all the way up to my most favorite. Today, for the most part, I feel like I have a lot of really good palettes. I feel like it's been a while since I tried an absolute like dead where I just couldn't stand the palette as a whole. But still, there are preferences, and so that's how I rank them for this video. And as we go along, I give you guys my full in-depth review for each of the products. And yeah, I have 10 palettes, as I said. Most of these I have video, like other videos on, so I always link those down below in the description box if you want more information. If you want to see me use them live on camera, that sort of thing, you can find links to all those videos down below in my description box. But yeah, that I think is enough of an intro. Oh, really quick, I want to say, if you like my eyeshadow and how it looks, I did use one of the palettes today, but I actually did a video separate from this one. So if you want to see me create this look, I will leave it linked up here because it should already be live if you want to see all the colors and how I created this look, because it was a palette bingo, so it was a lot of fun to do. And I didn't know how it would end, but I really liked how it ended. So I was like, you know what, let's just keep going and do another video before I have to wash off this look, because I really did enjoy how it turned out. So now with that all out of the way, let's go ahead and jump right in with palette number 10 in this Palooza countdown review. Okay, so palette number 10, this is going to be going off a lot of preferences because for the most part, this palette isn't terrible. It's not like the worst of the worst, but preference-wise, the bottom of this countdown has to go to Juvia's Place, the Rebels Honey palette, and this is mainly due to the color story, because the color story is very... It's very, you know, neutral, and not even a boring neutral. I do appreciate this type of neutrals, but still, when I was creating looks with it, they have 1 shimmer, 3 mattes. I like that ratio, but because especially these 2 mattes tended to look very samey on my eyes, I really struggled to be like super creative and be able to do a lot with. Now, granted, these are monochromatic palettes, so maybe that's just me and having an issue with a monochromatic quad. It's like, what do you expect, Katie, to get like that different of a look? But still, I like to see how much I can do, how creative I can get with a palette, and if the looks I do are all looking the same, even though I'm using different shades or placing them differently, I find that a little dissatisfying. So that's the biggest reason I'm putting this at the bottom, because the 2 looks that I did with this, it was just, they were okay. That's about all I can say. It's like, oh, they were fine. I mean, they were neutral looks. They both kind of looked the same, but they weren't the worst they weren't the worst palettes for sure in my collection. But I just wish that maybe if these 2 shades were a little bit farther apart or something, I don't even know what I wish. Maybe this could have, instead of both of these being so close, you could have done a really like blinding type of inner corner shade. Then that would have given something different, because you could have used that. I can't believe I'm asking for another shimmer as opposed to a matte, but here I am, because if, you know, this shade had been a very blinding, really special, like sparkly type of shade you could use in your inner corner, you could also use it all over the lid to get something different when it came to this quad. So I don't know, something about this quad. I got 1 look and I really didn't want to do another one, but I wanted to do at least 2 looks with the quads just to get a kind of a round grasp. And like I said, see how creative I could be. Both looks, I mean, you guys can tell me, you're going to see it here, but I feel like both looks looked the same, and I was just kind of like, oh. Okay, so that's just kind of me personally, my opinions on why I'm putting it so low, but quality-wise, the mattes were fine. They, you know, had no issues blending them. I thought they blended very nicely, and the shimmer was very nice. Nothing sparkly or anything like that, but a really nice metallic shine. I had no problems with it. I thought it was very pretty, but overall, it was just an okay quad, so hence why I decided to put it at number 10. Okay, I'm gonna move over here because I forgot I wanted to put any kind of Instagram reels and whatnot. I want to be able to put them here. So I'm just gonna scoot over a little bit. Next up is going to be Juvia's Place, the Rebel Grays palette. This one right here, the biggest reason I put this so low is because I was a little disappointed that this was like a satiny type of shade. I had wished if this was a matte, I think it would have gotten higher and it would have beat out a couple of the other palettes that we'll talk about in a minute, because it is definitely a very unique palette to my collection. I'm not someone super into grays. However, I did really enjoy this little quad. I enjoyed the gray looks. I was surprised. I added a little pop of neon with liner with this gray and I thought it was absolutely beautiful. But because this isn't like a true matte, I didn't like that this was the only matte to work with because it just felt a little bit limiting. I did use this as a matte in my crease to just see how it would work, and I did not like how it looked at all. Like, it was very shiny, but it was a little bit messy and sparkly, but it didn't really blend like I wanted it to because it wasn't a matte, and I didn't like the look, short and sweet of it. But overall, like, the looks that I got were very pretty, but I think I would have enjoyed this quad more had that been a matte. These two were nice. I do like that they have those differences within them. I wouldn't mind a little bit more difference, but honestly, I'm not mad at them. And the shimmers are beautiful. Juvia's Place shimmers tend to be very nice, buttery soft, very smooth, give you a metallic look, and that's exactly what this gave you. Like, I love the kind of finish you get on your eyelid. Very, very pretty, very happy with that. And I like this matte too. It was very nice to work with, very easy to blend. And if you're someone looking for a gray quad and you're wanting to try it out and add it into your collection, I think this is a good little quad. Just know going into it that this is not matte like I had assumed it was. It's not a matte. Next up, I had to put the Mince palette. This is the Juvia's Place, the Rebels Mince palette. This is a really nice little quad. I did surprise myself with how much I enjoy it. However, it didn't like blow me out of the water, and hence why it's not landing super high in the countdown, but higher than the other quads, so there's something. I wish this one was a couple shades darker, and then I would have been able to enjoy the look a little bit more. But as it is, both looks that I got were very pretty, but I miss depth when it comes to my looks. Like, I don't, like, when it comes to pastels, I don't mind pastels, but I have to have one shade to kind of ground it in the outer corner and deepen it out, and I couldn't get that with this. I do like this for a pastel palette or a pastel quad, so if you're someone who doesn't have any pastels and you're kind of wanting to dip your toes, I definitely think the formula of these is gorgeous. Like I was kind of saying what I wish with the honey palette, I do appreciate that they have this shade because it does help you get different looks, so that's why I put it above the honey, because I do appreciate that about it, but I'm not totally mad at it, hence why it's, you know, landing higher in my countdown than the ones we've talked about so far. But talking about the quality of these, I had absolutely no problems at all. I really did enjoy it. I like that they had these two be very different and kind of separated from each other, even though they're both still very light and pastel. They're both gorgeous and very blinding when it comes to the shine that it gives you. I enjoyed them. Mattes work great, shimmers work great, longevity was great, no issues there. But when we're just talking about the colors selected, I definitely appreciated this and enjoyed it more than the other quads, but I don't know, it's just maybe if it was a 6-pan palette with a little bit more depth, I would have been a little bit more in love with it. Or maybe it's just my mood and that I'm moving so far away from pastels, I didn't find enjoyment, but whatever the reason, I decided to put it where it's at because I did enjoy it. The looks were nice. They just, I don't know, they didn't blow me out of the water, and there were so many palettes that I've tried recently that it just didn't land too high. I feel like this is going to surprise some people, but the next is the Rebels Army palette from Juvia's Place. I feel like some people are going to be a little bit surprised that this didn't rank higher. But this has the problem that the DD Signature, do I even have it right here? The DD Signature Blueberry Quad, when I reviewed this, it has the same problem because the DD Signature I absolutely love, but the two mattes in here were so dark. I just wish one had been lighter, and that's the same story with this. The two greens in here are so dark that they basically look the same. However, this doesn't have the one leg up that the DD Signature has, in that the shimmers in this are like out of this world, like this is beautiful. I'll leave my video linked up here if you want to watch it, but, oh, sorry. If you want to watch these shimmers in action, they are special. But this, they're just, I mean, not that they're ugly at all. I think they're beautiful, but they're definitely not anything super unique or special. They're just nice, metallic, you know, leaning type of shimmers. They're very pretty, but nothing crazy. So because they're just like a standard shimmer, again, not that they're ugly at all. I think that they're absolutely beautiful, but they're not that like special sparkle to it. So because they don't have that special edge to it, I'm just kind of like, I don't know, so-so. Like if I had to go around and pick my favorite, you know, green themed type of palettes, this definitely wouldn't come high in my mind because there isn't those, you know, more mid-tone options to work with and really get creative looks. Like I said, these two basically look the same. Like, yes, there's a little bit difference, but like, oh, so little bit of a difference. Something too I noticed is that maybe it's because these are green mattes, because green can be a little bit fickle, or maybe it's the Juvia's Place formula, but it did not like working with this, which is the Alamar Pero Primero Primer. It's a type of like colored base, but it's very tacky feeling. And I've used this a lot. I tend to try to use it at least once when trying a palette just to see how it works with a very tacky base that's colored. And typically, once I kind of press a shadow down, I'm very careful to like press the shadow down and then start to blend. And typically when I do that, if I press it down and then start blending, I never have an issue blending. However, when I did that with this, it started getting all sorts of funky up where I was trying to blend and getting really weird looking. I was just like, oh no, that's not what I want right now. So I had to just kind of leave it with a harsh edge because I couldn't blend it. And there's no other mid-tone shade for me to like place on top to help with the blend because they're both so very dark. So, I mean, that could be just the primer's fault. It's definitely something to consider, but I did want to throw it out there. Overall, I think this is a nice quad. I would appreciate and use it with other type of green shades and whatnot. But as a standalone quad palette, which is what I always rank and review it on in these videos, it just didn't do it for me. If you're wanting to grab this as a one and done and you're wanting to see, know if you can get a lot of your different looks with this quad, that's where I'm like, I can recommend a lot of other green palettes that I feel like will give it to you where this just doesn't. Alright, moving right along. This is going to have to go to DD Signature's Juicy Skewer palette. This palette, not to bring it in too low compared to the other ones, but it is a very red, kind of burgundy-ish themed palette. So while I did really enjoy the looks that I got out of it, like I said, there were a lot of really amazing palettes that just beat it out. But as a palette in and of itself, it's standing on its own 2 feet. The mattes and the shimmers are fantastic. This yellow one is a very thin type of yellow, like when you actually use it. If you pack it on and whatnot, and if you use a white base, it'll show up very nicely and it blends and works well with all the other colors. But it is definitely a thinner formula, so if you're wanting to use it in a look, I would definitely recommend either giving it a nice solid base, a white base or something like that, or just taking time to build it up. But these other two, like, be careful. You don't need too much of like babying to pack it on because they just pack a punch and they definitely like show up no problems. I do believe that one of these stains more than the other one. I used the red one day and it didn't stain too much, so I think it's the pink. I don't know. I just noticed that when I take my makeup off at the end of the day with this palette, I did notice some staining. But yeah, besides that, I had such a great time with this palette and it was very fun to get creative with this. And I love that pop of yellow because I think I mentioned it in the video that I did. I have a full video using her whole fruit skewer palette. I'll leave that link down below, of course. But it's something that I love about having that yellow in there is that when you use it with these reds, mixing the yellow and reds together, it gives you really great like fiery type of eye looks because the yellow mixes with the red to create that orange in the middle, and it's just so beautiful. So even if you're someone who like me isn't super into the reds, I still found that I really enjoyed the looks that I got with it because mixing the yellows in really gave me that orange, and I like a fiery red look. So the looks that I did with this, I had a ton of fun. I was super impressed with this and I was surprised how much I enjoyed this palette since it is such a red pinky type of leaning palette for me to enjoy using it, since I typically am not into those color stories. But this surprised me. That yellow really gave it something different and I was able to get so creative with it. Really did enjoy it. Had no issues with wear time with either the mattes or the shimmers. Very impressed with them. I thought it was such a cute little palette and I like it. I know a lot of people, I already said this, I know a lot of people were kind of harping on the empty spaces here. I don't mind it because it's a very nice size to hold, so I surprisingly was just like, oh, that's okay. I forgive it. Alright, next is going to go to Oden's eye palette. This is the Chapter 2 Cat with Golden Carriage. Oh, it's a Cat's Breath palette. Sorry, there are a lot of words on the front of their palette. But anyway, this little palette right here. Right here, it's a very fun mix of orange and greens, and I really like that mix, and I had a lot of fun with the color story and the types of looks that I could create. I have a first impressions video on this already live on my channel if you want to watch it and see how I create the look, but I really like that mix of orange and green. It's very pretty. The orange really makes the looks pop, and then the green really adds depth and grunge to it that I love. The one thing and the reason that this is landing kind of mid-tier, it's right in the middle for this countdown, but that has to be because the shimmers, while they're beautiful, they're all a bit light and a bit like sheer-ish when you actually go to use them. I find that I have to spend a good amount of time really building them up to get them to pop on the lid and to get them to be very opaque. Now that is just Oden's Eyes formula. They tend to have those kind of wash of color looks, though some of them do have, a decent amount of color to them, but for the most part, they have that kind of like, almost like a wet lid look instead of being like intensely pigmented. And just for me personally, that tends to not be my preference. Quality-wise though, they're very pretty. They have a very gorgeous shine to them. They have a bit of like a flaky feel to them. And when you use it with a brush and stuff like that, it can flake off. So if you're someone who likes to use your finger, I feel like that's the way to go because you can just really press in there, not get too much, and then kind of slide it on so you don't get a ton of fallout. But moving over to the mattes, I really do like their mattes. They're nicely pigmented. Nothing too crazy with the feel like like a thickness or anything, but they're definitely not a thin, dry formula at all. So if you don't like thin and dry formulas, that's not what you're going to find here. I found the feel and the way they blended together and blended into other eyeshadows very, very nice, very smooth and effortless, and I was very pleased. There is one of the mattes that have like gold glitter in them. I really don't notice it. These type of shades always annoy me because it's like, if you don't notice it in a look, why are we putting it in there? But it is in there, but you're not going to really see it. It'll just fall all over your face that you'll have to clean up later. So definitely something to consider, and just wanted to throw that out there. But wear time for this, I did not notice any issues. I used it with a couple of different primers. No big flaking issues with the shimmers, and no like wearing away with the mattes. Overall, very happy with it. And like I said, it's a really fun color story. Nothing too crazy. I think that's something I like about this quad, is that they have those tones in there that give you color, but also soft color, but also give you something to go and kind of pop out there if you want something really popping like I do. But there are softer tones in there if you want a more neutral, nothing too loud. You can get a more soft kind of green and orange look with this palette, or you could get a very loud one like I tended to get. But overall, I really did enjoy this palette, and the palette as a whole is very cute. Like it's packaged, the presentation, Oden's Eye, is always very, very cute. I like the feel of it in your hands. It's a nice thickness, and it's one of those palettes that's going to be like a beautiful display piece, but also if you're someone like me who likes to put it in your bookshelf back here, it's going to go really, really well because it has the name on the end. It just looks like a cute little book. So I like it. I always love their packaging. Very, very cute. Okay, this is usually the point of my countdown where I lose count, but anyway, the next palette in this countdown is going to go to DD Signature's Exotic Skewer palette. This palette right here, we're getting to my favorite, so I know this is ranking at, I think, the 4th if I counted right. I know it's ranking at the 4th, but it's such a good palette, so much fun. I think my favorite thing about this palette is just the creativity with the color story. I really like what she did here, and not just giving anything too like monochromatic green. There's just so much you can do with this palette, and like I've mentioned before, that's what I like in a palette, is how many different type of looks and how creative I can be without getting repetitive with my eye looks. And with this palette, I really didn't feel like I was repetitive at all. I mean, you guys are going to see on screen all the eye looks, so you can determine if they got a little bit repetitive, but in doing them day to day, I always felt like I came away with something a little bit different, and something, you know, different and unique to the palette from what I had done before. The two shimmers in here are DD Signature's Special Shimmers. She does shimmers so well, kind of like I was saying with her little fruit quads that we talked about, the blueberry. Her shimmers are just beautiful. They're that type of like squishy type of like Super Shock formula, but they're not like a cream or anything like that, but they have that squishy feel to them, but they come off and they apply just like a regular eyeshadow. So they're a very interesting formula, and they're formula that I don't mind. I don't tend to find them like coming off in sheets, kind of like I was talking about with the Oden's Eye palette. I don't tend to find that. I do have to be careful when I pick them up with a brush because they are that kind of you know, cushion type of formula. You have to be careful that you don't like dig through to the pan. With that said though, I never saw pan, even though like this one I have a pretty significant dip in there just from touching it. But as long as you're careful to not press down too hard and to kind of more like rub the top of it, I never had an issue applying these. I was always very happy with how they applied, and especially their more pigmented shadows apply so easy because they're very saturated in color. This one's more of like a sheer wash of like a duochrome color, but this is very nicely pigmented and I had no issues. It didn't take me too long to get the color to show up as I wanted it on my eyes. Very happy with that. The mattes in this palette also really nice. Her mattes tend to be a more thin formula. If you haven't ever tried DD Signature, they feel like they don't have as much, I guess, is it viscosity? They don't have as much like depth or density. They don't have as much density as some other formulas that I've tried that I really like, but they're all kind of like different. They're all a little bit different because, like, you know, some of them can have a little bit of density, but other ones can be fairly dry. Like this purple, I feel like it's a pretty dry purple, but as you can see, still really pigmented. Like, you know, no big issues there. The pigment is definitely there. When I use them in an eye look, they show up really well. You pack it on. Kind of like I already said, I work from dark to light, and when I use her formula, I tend to stamp it on and then blend. But that tends to be a habit I've gotten in anyway, so I'm just throwing it out there. Not to say that any other method, like blending method, won't work, but that's the method I used when I reviewed and I tried this palette. But yeah, overall, my favorite thing about this Exotic Skewer is how exotic and special the color story is. She did a fantastic job with it. Very different, very unique, very colorful, and that's the type of palette I like. So yeah, definitely really did enjoy this palette. All right, another DD Signature palette. This is the Tropical Skewer palette. This is such a fun color story with that mix of like cool tone blues and black with the orange, but the orange has a coolness to it as well that I thought just went really well together. This was a palette that I got a touch bit repetitive with, but it was more accidentally. You're gonna see two of the looks I feel like look pretty similar, but I think it was more me. I was trying so many palettes at the time because I was trying to get this review video up, so I think I just forgot that I did that look. But anyway, as a whole, I feel like this is a very creative color story, and I like the silver in there. That's so much fun. Her black formula is super, super nice. Something I noticed is like it is intense. If you don't like a super dark black and you like wherever you put it, it stays. I definitely would do this after another shadow because I used this as a liner one day and it did not move. Like I put it as a liner and then I was blending one of the blues on top of it, and I thought I would have to go back in and kind of redefine the line, but it didn't budge at all. And I was using it on a tacky base, so something to note, maybe if you don't, it'd be easier to blend, but using it on a tacky base, it did not budge. So if you don't want it to be so intense, maybe do one of the blues and then add the black if you're wanting it just for depth or whatnot. It was just such a fun color story. I like how many mattes you have in this palette. I do think that this orange is a little bit, compared to DD Signature's other shimmer formulas, a little bit more tame, I guess you would say, because it's not a bad shimmer at all. Both of these are a little bit more like tame in that they don't have any crazy sparkle. They don't feel like crazy cushiony like the Super Shocks, kind of like I was talking with the Exotic. Both of them have just such a squishy feel to them. These are still really soft, but they almost just feel like normal metallics instead of anything super duper squishy. They remind me of like Give Me Glow's formula when it comes to her metallics, so something to note, it's just a little bit different, and they don't have anything like sparkly reflect or anything like the other Exotic skewer does with that duochrome or shifting shadow in there. So these do kind of come across, and when I use them, they just kind of seem to be and act and look like typical shimmer shadows that verge on metallic. And yeah, this was just a very fun and creative color story, and I feel like it's a color story that I don't really have in my collection, hence why it's landing so high, because the orange and the blue is just something fun and different. I really did enjoy it. I love a good black, and yeah, this, I had to give Tropical Skewer a high place in my countdown. Okay, we're coming towards the end, but next up is going to be the Caramel Skewer palette from DD Signature. This palette, again, it's getting a higher count or a higher place in my ranking because it is such a fun and unique color story. Like, look how pretty that is. I love that mix of green to blue, but then it has those purples up there. This is a palette that I did notice staining. I meant to say it earlier when I reviewed the other palette, but the Exotic Skewer also has, oh sorry, didn't mean to blind you, also has a purple in there. I'm pretty sure the purple's stained as well. Now I used all of these palettes kind of around the same time because I was working on the video, so maybe I'm misremembering it, but there were definitely several nights intended to be when I was using the hot pink and the purples that I got staining, and this one has one of them in here as well. So just something to note going into any of these palettes that you might pick up. But anyway, moving on from that, I really did just really appreciate the color story and how fun this palette was. This was a palette that is definitely, again, it's getting higher because it's a creative type of color story. There's only, you know, what, 6? Yes, I had to look and double check, but there's only 6 shadows, but I still felt like I could get so creative having only 6 shadows. She didn't like waste any, and that's something I really appreciate with all of DD Signature's Tropical Skewer palettes. I haven't said it yet, but all of her palettes like don't let any shade go to waste. Kind of like I was talking with the Juvia's Place, the quads before. They landed low because I felt like if 1 or 2 had been different or had changed out for something else, then it would have been better. I felt like they wasted a shadow in some of them. This, on the other hand, I feel like each and every one, it's like I look at it and be like, no, like I see all of them needing to be here. I really don't see any of them being like, no, you didn't really need to put that in there. So I appreciate that attention to detail and just making sure not to waste a space. I really do appreciate her work there, and I think she came out with a really fun and colorful color story. This shadow right here is so very beautiful and special. It's more of that Super Shock type of formula and just has so much shine. Oh my goodness, this one as well. Very, very pretty. They're just so very shiny and beautiful. I really do enjoy hers. And I think this one, Current Apple, I'm terrible at telling, but when I look at it straight on here in a mirror, it's green, but when I look at it on the side, it's like a purple blue. So I'm pretty sure that's called a multi-chrome? Duochrome shift at least, because there are at least 2 colors that I see there. This one also has a very beautiful shift as well. It kind of goes from straight on, I think from what you see is like a a berry red. I don't even know, but when you look at it on the side, it's like a gold. So it's very beautiful. Both of these are very special and fun. So if you like, or if you want to try unique shadows, something very special and fun, and get it in a palette, this would be an option, or, you know, other ones in her skewer palette. But DD Signature does have those shadows that have those shifts in it, and I like that about it. So if you don't want to go and buy singles from another brand, you know, maybe one of these palettes you could pick up and get some special shadows in there. I think this was the palette that, yeah, I feel like more of the mattes in here were drier feeling. However, when I use them in looks, I never noticed a difference, and that's something to note. Like when I test a palette, I don't typically swatch it first. I save the swatches for when I do, if I'm going to do a video. But me on the day-to-day, I tend to just use them on the eyes, because as long as they work on the eyes, I don't really care how they swatch. But something I noticed with this palette specifically compared to the other ones is it feels very dry, and it's very hard to pick up with a finger, but I never had an issue picking up with a brush. So just something to throw out there and note. Wear time for this palette, same with all the other DD Signature Fruit Skewer palettes, was fantastic. Had no issues with fading throughout the day. The shimmers didn't crease or flake off my face or anything like that, and overall super duper happy with this as a whole. And I just love the creativity and the uniqueness with this color story. Very unique from what I personally own in my collection and that I've seen in the beauty space. Okay, are you guys ready for number one? I'm sure you've already guessed it, or maybe you guessed it when the video first started, but my number one that just stole my heart this past 10 palettes has got to be the Beauty Bay Wilderness palette. Oh my goodness, this is a perfect palette. I remember when I saw the palette when they first launched it, I was like, okay, if that formula is good, that color story is killer. I heard some people saying that this bottom row was very like weird and out of place, but I love everything about this palette, including the bottom row, and I feel like that bottom row gives it that much more level of uniqueness, and I just appreciate it so much. I love how like cool tone you're getting up here with the greens and the blues, but then you get down here and you get more grunge and a little bit of warmth, and then down here you get the warmth. So it's just like all wrapped into one. You guys know I like to mix and match, warm and cool, mix and match my colors and whatnot, and this palette is just like my colorful grungy side in a palette. So obviously I knew I was gonna love it as long as the formula was good. This was my first time trying Beauty Bay, and oh my goodness, the formula is outstanding. I am just so very impressed with how beautiful these mattes are. Like, oh my goodness, they are so buttery smooth. They have a nice feel to them. They're not dry at all. They have very nice pigment to them. The shimmers in this palette are more of a flaky type of formula, where like when I use it and I'm picking it up with a brush, I tend to get a lot of like kind of fallout. It can get a little flaky and whatnot, so I have to be careful when I'm picking it up. But picking it up on my finger, I don't really notice it as much. It's a lot more smooth when you use it on, or when you pick it up with a finger. But the formula as a whole is just very beautiful, like so glittery and so sparkly. Like each one of these, they're beautiful. Most of them are super duper pigmented. A few of them are more sheerish, but they're meant to be sheer. But for the most part, they're all got a nice pigment to them. But each and every one of these shimmers has a gorgeous and special and just gorgeous reflect and sparkle to it. Like I said, there's a little bit of a, you know, not even a downside, but it's just something to note, is that they can be a little tricky and a little flaky to put on because of that kind of flaky formula when you're going to pick it up with a brush. But honestly, I don't mind it. It goes on fairly easy, especially the more pigmented shadows. They have a nice amount of pigment to them. It goes on pretty easy. It stays all day. Lasting power for both shimmers and mattes were fantastic. There was a little bit of sparkle fallout on these shimmers throughout the day because I think they have so many sparkle reflex to it, but honestly, it was pretty minimal. It wasn't anything noticeable until I got up close in a mirror, but honestly, this palette is so beautiful, I really didn't mind it. But yeah, overall, very, very happy with it. I never had any issues blending any one of these. And I feel like with this palette, you could get so many different looks that you would never have to feel like super repetitive with this palette. And that's what I love about it as well. And yeah, overall, it's an amazing palette and I absolutely love it. And I already can tell you right now, it's going to be in my top 10, if not top 5, if not very tippity top of my like all-time favorite palettes from 2021, because that's how much I love it. I don't know what the future holds, so I hate like throwing it out there because we still got some months. There could be a palette that comes out, you know, in the next month that blows me out of the water, but I can rest assured this is in my top 10 because I love it so very much. So you're going to be seeing it again at the end of the year when I do my, you know, top 10 from the 2020 and whatnot. But this is, I am sorry to say, limited edition. I think Beauty Bay is going to bring it back at least once more time. I'd love it if they make it permanent. I'm really crossing my fingers that they at the very least bring it back for a couple more restocks. If not, like just bring it out for a year and then maybe, you know, discontinue it, or bring it out for a couple months and then discontinue it. I don't know. They created a killer palette here for people like me who love grunge, who love color. They created the most perfect color story with a bomb formula, and it's like $15. That's another thing I don't think I've mentioned. $15. So amazing. I really do hope they bring it back for at least a little bit longer. But anyway, regardless of that, it's my number one. I love it so much. Alright, so there you have it. We have come to the end of another Palette Palooza countdown review video, ranking the last 10 palettes that I used. As I said, I think I have 6 all ready to go. I'm finishing up a few other ones, so in a couple more weeks, probably 2-3 more weeks, I'm going to have another one of these videos. So if you enjoyed this video, if you always enjoy hearing me talk about palettes, definitely stay tuned because another one is going to be coming up fairly soon for me. I feel like I do these every like couple months, and it's going to be fairly soon for me because I've just been trying so many palettes, and a lot of these were more smaller palettes and whatnot with the quads, so I was able to get through them a little bit quicker. But yeah, that is going to do it for me for this video. Thank you guys so very much for watching. I really do appreciate it. Let me know which of the palettes that I reviewed today was your favorite. Like, which one are you eyeing the most, or have you picked any of these up? Let me know. Or do you plan to pick any of these up? I should throw out there, you know, here at the end, I should do it at the beginning, but these review videos are to inform you what I think about these palettes, and I hope no one ever takes this as like, oh my goodness, I need to go buy it right now. Definitely take this information, and I'm someone who's a big person on getting a deal, so if you see one of these palettes that you really like, I would definitely just recommend waiting around for a sale and picking it up on a sale. I feel like for the most part, all of these palettes are very affordably priced, so in a sense, like, I still think that they're absolutely worth it full price, but you know, if you're not in a rush, wait for a sale and then maybe pick one up if you're eyeing one and wanting to get one. But yeah, I just want to throw out there that I hope this video doesn't make you want to go rush out and buy all these. Definitely don't mean that in these videos. I just want them to be very informative. Maybe if you're looking at one of these palettes to potentially purchase, now you know my review and you can wait around for a good sale and then pick it up on a sale to make it just a little bit more worth it, because I feel like anytime I buy a palette on a sale, it's a little bit extra special because it's like, oh, I got this a little bit cheaper. Am I the only one? Anyway, just want to throw that out here at the very end. I am over on Instagram. I'm LadyKatie92 if you want to continue following me over there. I post reels, as you guys saw in the video, up close eye looks and that sort of thing. And I just like to have a lot of fun over there. So LadyKatie92, you can check me out. I try to also put a link down in my description box. If you just want to click that, it should take you over to Instagram. But yeah, with all that said, that is going to do it for me. Thank you guys so very much for watching, and I'll see you very soon in my next one. Bye, guys.